2021 Release 1, we made several enhancements to the financials modules. Paul Layton and I will be talking to you about those today. We're going to hit the highlights, which means I'm going to talk about intercompany accounting, and Paul's going to cover several of these other financial features you see listed here. So let's start with intercompany accounting. Within Acumatica, there's the notion of tenants and companies. Our goal with tenants is they were originally designed to be completely independent companies. So we created a consolidation capability that runs at the end of a financial period to allow you to consolidate financials among tenants. But where we're headed is within a tenant, you can have related companies that do buy and sell transactions between them. And we want that to happen in real time. So the features that we're introducing in 2020 R1 are important to making this happen. Now, the only restriction that companies have today is that they cannot have the same, they have to have the same base currency. We've already overcome the ability to have different financial periods. They have to have the same structure, but they can have different start and end times. In addition, you can provide some visibility with restriction groups in terms of chart of accounts. So to get an idea of where we've been, last release, we provided the ability to create a service transaction between companies. So you could always do due to and due from, but then we introduced cross-company sales where we automatically create an AP document when you created an AR in the other company. In this release, we're automating purchase orders and sales orders as well as shipments and purchase receipts. In the near future, we're going to be re-invoicing. So let's take a look at what we've done to make this possible. The first thing is centralized vendor management. We used to have centralized customer management. Now you can very specifically define which vendors you can see in companies within the same tenant. Company groups is also a new feature. With company groups, we can create unique groupings of companies that apply to both visibility and in the future, it will apply to other characteristics. So here's the new company group screen that allows me to manage vendors by putting them into different groups. So you'll see I can make unique groupings of all my companies, and I can set any number of those on this company group screen. What that allows me to do is if I go into some example, a vendor class, you'll see there's this restrict visibility to area. Now I can select two companies at once for visibility. So if I were to go into vendors, you can see that the field also appears here, and I've given this vendor access to the services teams only. So if I would log in as a person who does not have access to the services companies up here, such as Joe Becker, then he should not be able to see that vendor. Now that we've set up company groups, let's take a look at a cross-company sales example. So this is going to allow us to create transactions between related companies and automate them, saving lots of time in the creation of purchase receipts, sales orders, and of course, as before, AP bills from your other related company. It'll also automate the return process. In this example, I want to buy some Legos for my wholesale company, which I'm in now. So you can see I have 440 of these in my warehouse. Now before I do that, in sales order preferences, you'll see I created a new order type for intercompany sales and assigned it. That order type is very similar to a regular sales order, except down here, I'm going to use the customer location for my accounting. So in my Services East company, you can see the sales is going to go to an interbranch sales account. This will allow me to keep track of sales in a different manner than if I'm just selling to regular customers. I'm going to now navigate over to my services company where I want to do that purchase from. So here's my purchase order. I'm going to remove it from hold and approve it. And you can see the warehouse. Now, one of the great time-saving features that we've just introduced is the ability to generate this sales order directly from this actions menu, or it can go from a processing screen as well. Over here in the other tab, you can see here's this related sales order that I just created in my wholesale company. So let's go switch over to my wholesale company. We'll go to my sales order screen, do a quick refresh, and there's my new sales order. So I'm going to open that up. Now let's go ahead and do a quick process to make this happen. We're going to go create a shipment. We're going to confirm the shipment. I'm going to prepare an invoice and release the invoice and make all this happen in one step. So now I've shipped my goods from my wholesale company over to my retail services company. So just like anything else, I now have to receive the goods. So let's go back over here and see how we've made that process a bit easier as well. So let's go to the screen called Generate Intercompany Purchase Receipts, and there should be one waiting for us. There it is. And I'm going to go ahead and process that. Over here is my purchase receipt. Move hold and release it. Now the other thing I want to do is automatically create a bill for that. So I'm going to go ahead and show you another screen, the Generate Intercompany Documents screen. And just like that, here's my AP bill. So now I've transferred all the goods, so let's go back to the wholesale company and see what things look like. If I refresh this screen, notice that I only have 435 now available. And over here in my retail warehouse, I've got 5 that have been completed. Now the next thing is to see how this would look on my financials. So I'm going to look up my 12-month rolling P&L report and run it. Now that we've completed the sale, let's go ahead and show an example of a return. So let me head over to the services company and I'll open up the products wholesale purchase receipt. And I'm going to hit the return button. And I'm going to select the line, then I'm going to hit the return button. So after creating the return, I release it. And now there's a new time-saving feature which is called Generate Sales Return. This is going to automatically create a document of RMA type in my wholesale company. So if I go here, you'll see here's my RMA order, and I can open that up. And now, just like I did before, I can process the return if I went back to my wholesale company. So that concludes the intercompany sales demonstration.
Thank you. It's my privilege to be able to show you the remaining financial features that have been provided by Acumatica 2021 R1, starting with financial dashboards created or provided in the core product. Dashboards have always been an integral part of what Acumatica delivers to our customers to allow them to perform their financial roles. Previous versions of Acumatica, however, delivered these dashboards as a customization. In order to make our implementations more efficient, Acumatica has now included these dashboards in our ERP product with no customizations. The dashboards that are available for finance are the controller dashboard, focusing on financial management and control, the AP clerk, focusing on vendor management and payments, and the AR clerk, focusing on customer management and credit. Let's take a quick minute to jump over to Acumatica and take a look at some of these dashboards. Here's our controller dashboard. Notice that it's broken up so the controller can see what's going on with the AR clerk. The controller can see what's going on with the AP clerk, including all of the credit and credit risk that's involved, cash requirement, cash on hand, and then can also see great graphs of AR aging, AP aging, month date expenses, our cash position, and so forth. A wonderful dashboard. The AP Clerk's dashboard provides access and visibility into what's going on with our vendors. How are our vendors responding? What's my cash flow for the next 7 days? What AP do I have overdue? And of course, AR is looking at our credit risk with our customers. Invoices to mail, customers who've exceeded their credit limit. Those items are all available within the Acumatica 2021 R1 product. Let's look now at the new automation workflow engine implementation inside the financial module. It was determined that user interfaces can be confusing, especially when similar actions have dissimilar names, and when workflow options available in certain situations are still showing available under the action menu, but you can't select them. In order to correct this, Acumatica has developed a new workflow engine that's been implemented throughout the system, and finance has adopted this engine as well. This engine allowed for the renaming of specific fields under the action menus and for the placing of our next logical selections under the action menu to show up on the toolbar. These forms affect AP, AR, contract management, GL, taxes, and cash management as well. Let's take a quick look inside of Acumatica and look at one of these forms. Here I have a AP bills and adjustment form open to an open invoice. So this has been released and is in the general ledger, in the AP ledger. And so my actions for this invoice are fairly limited. I can pay this invoice. That's my next logical action. That's why that's on the toolbar. Or I could reverse this invoice or reclassify the GL batch that I used to post this invoice to the GL. Notice everything else on this actions menu is now grayed out to be unusable for me in this particular workflow state of status open. If I come here to my customization window, I see that I've got a new menu item called Show State Diagram. And when I open that up, I can show the diagram where the status of the item is open, as we are here. Here are the options that I have. I can void this, I can pay this, and then as the status of the document changes, then my position here inside of this particular workflow will change. It is possible for developers to come in and use this workflow as part of a customization. And when I put this workflow into a customization, this will give me the ability to modify and change this workflow in the customization package. With the customization project open, it brings me into a place where I can modify and change my states and transitions for this particular document, and also gives me that same diagrammed view of the statuses of this document and the transitions that can be performed from each of these statuses. The next modification or enhancement that's been provided in the financials module is an enhancement to the credit card settlement process. And any organization that has batching of credit card processing that does e-commerce or is heavily involved in large number of sales orders that are settled by credit card will greatly appreciate this new settlement process. A credit card settlement is the process through which merchants turn credit card transactions into cash in the bank. Authorized.net, who you will be required to use if you wish to use this new credit card settlement process, batches and settles these transactions. Generally, they settle these transactions. They batch these transactions every evening, send them to the merchant bank, and then settle those transactions within a 24-hour period. In the past, the companies that were doing this process had to run the reports from those batches and then create the bank deposits for these settlements manually. In order to support this functionality, the settlement batch entity has been introduced into Acumatica. The settlement batch is a group of transactions that have been submitted together for settlement with the bank. When those settlements are cleared, Acumatica will automatically create a deposit for these credit card settlements. So how does that work? Well, in the Processing Centers window, we have a new section under the Preferences tab called Settlement. In this window, we turn on the importation of settlement batches from authorized.net, and we select the deposit account against which these items will be deposited, and also we set up a feature to automatically create these bank deposits. When the credit card batches are imported, it will come into the Import Settlement Batches window. and will be evaluated and will be assigned statuses. Those statuses may be an error, processing, or pending processing, pending manual review, processed or already deposited. But these batches will be tracked and their history tracked here in this import batch settlements window. Once the system starts to match transactions in a processing batch, the following actions are actually performed. The system searches for a document with the corresponding credit card transaction identification. If that document is not found, the batch transaction status is set to missing. In other words, in the batch, you will have a line that says this transaction does not appear inside of Acumatica. If the document is found, it is linked to the batch transaction, and that batch transaction is set to be processed. If the transaction status is in the document is different from the status in the settlement batch, the credit card transaction is validated. In other words, if we have expired authorization within Acumatica, and yet the credit card transaction did settle, then that credit card transaction is validated. If the transaction in the batch has settled successfully, or a refund has settled it as a void status, the cleared box is selected for the document. If all transactions have the processed or hidden status inside of a batch, that the status of that settlement batch is then set to processed. This is what a settlement batch window would look like after the settlement batch is completed. Notice that these are processed and the deposit has been created automatically and referenced here based on this settlement status. In order to help support this settlement of credit card payments, the following changes have been made to system behavior. Enhancements to allow settlement batches include credit card payments after authorization has expired within Acumatica. When two companies use the same authorized.net account, users may exclude settlement batches that belong to the other company, and the import of credit card refunds with void and authorized payment. So if a payment has been made or has been captured and a refund has been received for that captured payment, then the credit card process or the credit card payment will be marked as void inside of Acumatica. Other financial features that have been included with this enhancement: tax exemption numbers shown at the document level. So in the past, uh, if I had an exemption certificate with a customer, that number was pulled directly from the customer location and sent to Avalara with the transactional document without being displayed on the document inside of Acumatica ERP. With this new feature, the tax exemption number box has been added to the following forms: cash sales invoices, and memos, pro forma invoices, and sales invoices. The tax number exemption number box appears if the external tax calculation integration has been enabled. Other financial features that we're not going to have time to actually touch on today, but do appear in Acumatica 2021 R1 release include synchronization of tax periods with financial periods, the ability to apply taxes to bank fees and to bank transfers, the removal of statistical ledgers from the budget form, the support of cash transactions in bank deposits by allowing us to select accounts that are clearing accounts within the cash transaction screen, support of price list and net gross prices for those organizations that require that, tax support of expenses on bank transfers. We are renaming user interface elements from validate to recalculate for recalculate account balances, project balances, vendor balances, customer balances, deferred balances, inventory, and account history. We have added the vendor class to the prepare payments forms. We're allowing for the change of ID for the ledger forms. So if we want to change the statistical ledger from stats to information, we can make that change now with the change ID option. We're allowing the support for recalculate history for statistical ledgers, and we have improved the usability of calculate overdue charges forms. Financial enhancements that have been covered in other sections that you may have already watched or may want to watch the include the paid amount and line level balances that support AR and AP reports for construction, the project filter on prepare payments form, which is a construction, and fixed assets under construction, which is also part of construction. Thank you for your time today.